Okay, so Kayla Williams is in the boat. Who could follow him? That's the subject. We're going to talk about it after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, a day removed, not even 12 hours actually, from Kayla Williams committing to the University of Oklahoma. We're already talking about who could follow him because this is the biggest domino that will fall in 2021 for Oklahoma. This is the number one quarterback in the 2021 class, the number one dual threat quarterback in the class, and a top 10 recruit in Caleb Williams coming out of Gonzaga College High School in D.C. Now, he's in the boat. He's solidly committed. He did it on national television. He threw the horns down on national television. Who was there attending with him but a wide receiver from the area, Jalil Farouk? This is a top 150 wide receiver, and as Oklahoma is still very much in the running for one or even two wide receivers, this is a big deal because he's been described as a super lean to a Big 12 power that is Oklahoma. 3 crystal balls in for him. 2 of them come from my colleagues at OUinsider.com who were on site for Caleb Williams' big announcement, talking with guys like Jalil Farouk. You got to feel good about that as he is outstanding. The comp for him, according to Brian Doan, is Riley Ridley. He's slight of frame, about 6 foot, 185 pounds, can play inside or outside, and would give you some more firepower to join this 21 class and to join Caleb Williams. A couple of other guys to keep your eye on are some offensive linemen, guys like Bryce Foster, whom Steve Wiltfong still feels really good about his crystal ball going to Oklahoma, even as Texas A&M still very much seems to be in the picture for one of the top guard prospects in all of the 2021 class. Oklahoma has been in early on Bryce Foster and wanting the man nicknamed the Mountain for some time, even going so far as to lay out for him in his visit how he could throw shot and disc on the track team and play football all during the spring. Bill Bedenbaugh, like Lincoln Riley, is not averse to having multi-sport athletes play football. I think this is outstanding for him because that's one of the things that's going to really lure him in, whether it be A&M, Oklahoma, or even Texas. The other dudes to watch are like Savion Byrd. Savion Byrd seems to be down to Oklahoma SMU. Preston Stone already in the boat at SMU. Could be joined by Byrd. Could be joined by 5-star running back Kamara Wheaton. Kamara Wheaton is another highly coveted target for Oklahoma. A 5-star tailback to join a 5-star quarterback would be awesome. What would be even more awesome? Another 5-star player in Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka joined many who wish Caleb Williams well on his commitment last night. The two seem to be getting along quite well. And while many folks, myself included, believe that Egbuka is still an Ohio State lean, we've seen how these things can go during the quarantine and during this pandemic where nobody can take a visit anywhere. So if you are good at digitally recruiting, that means sending out these digital pieces of paraphernalia that the kids can put on their Twitters, that you can brand them in such a way that they feel like they're going to be taken care of, but also be able to grow their name, that you can also put them in a position to not just win the Biletnikoff Award in the case of one Farouk or Egbuka, but play on championship teams. Oklahoma's got 5 consecutive ones and has basically rented a room at the college football playoff. Put them in the NFL draft in the first round. Take a look at CeeDee Lamb, take a look at Hollywood Brown, but also put them in a position to win awards like the Biletnikoff, and in the case of D.D. Westbrook just 4 years ago, be a Heisman finalist as a wide receiver. It's all on the table at Oklahoma. Now, the one thing that Oklahoma has over Ohio State, not against, but over Ohio State, is they can show that they put wide receivers into the first round of the NFL draft, right? They are up there with Clemson when we're talking about wide receivers that are getting drafted very highly. We're still waiting on an Ohio State receiver to get drafted in the first round for the first time since 2007 when they had 2, Ted Ginn Jr. and Anthony Gonzalez. Both of those dudes are old enough to have children that are playing Pop Warner right now. So if you're looking, you're also looking and going, man, Urban Meyer probably should have done way more with guys like Michael Thomas and Ezekiel Elliott and others, just going down a list of great Ohio State players to come through there. Winning the 1 championship, probably should have won 2 or 3. That's what Ryan Day is trying to do, and that's what this recruiting class for him has continued to look like. The 2021 recruiting class for Ohio State is going to be an all-timer. Right now, I think it's getting further and further out of reach, this greatest recruiting class of all time. But if they're going to get there, they got to get Egbuka in the boat, right? Especially after losing J.C. Latham, who was another dude that was slated as Ohio State lean, who ended up committing to Alabama in June, joining a cavalcade of players that are committing to Alabama, lately joined by Dallas Turner just this month. And when you look at the way that Nick Saban's been able to recruit, and you look at all the topsy-turviness of these team rankings, it feels like if a coach really wants to go after it, this is the time. We watch Mario Cristobal and Joe Moorhead go into Mississippi and pull out the number 3 slated recruit in the state, and Isaiah Brevard. That dude makes them a top 5 class so far in this 2021 class. We've seen LSU continue to go into the state of Texas, but also nationally and lately right at home, bringing Chris Hilton in, 4-star wide receiver from Louisiana area. We have also seen just how likely teams are to nationally recruit. Les Miles picked up a pretty great wide receiver in Keyon Coleman, who expects to play football and basketball. And no disrespect to Kansas, but if Keyon Coleman can play basketball, Bill Self ain't going to let him nowhere near a football field. It just doesn't factor in. Kansas would have won the national championship if we got to play the national championship tournament this year. They were that good, and that's what Bill Self does, and that's what Kansas does. They don't particularly care about football. As a matter of fact, it's the inverse at Oklahoma, where the way that Oklahoma cares about football is the way that Kansas cares about basketball, right? And vice versa. The way that Kansas cares about football is the way that Oklahoma cares about basketball. We like it if you're good, but we demand that those other sports be the best in the country. And then taking a look at the rankings that just took a whole new list, you're talking about an Oklahoma squad that in picking up just 2 recruits, 4-star wide receiver, 4-star cornerback, Latrell McCutcheon, and 5-star quarterback, Kayla Williams, they vault from number 31 in the team rankings to number 14 in the team rankings with just 11 commits. That's pretty doggone good, considering that at number 5, we're talking about Clemson with 16 commits. If you get some high-quality blue-chip players like a Jeremiah Scooby Williams, a 4-star out of Birmingham, Alabama, play some weak side defensive end, edge rush. If you can get an Egbuka, if you can get a Kamara Wheaton or a Tristan Leigh, who was one of the best offensive tackles in this class and seems to be down to Penn State, Clemson, and Oklahoma, among others, you're talking about being able to not just finish in the top 10, but finish in the top 5. It's a tall order, though. And I need to stress that. It's a tall order for Lincoln Riley, for Bill Beatonbow, for Alex Grinch, for Roy Manning, for Brian Odom, for Cale Gundy. But it is within their grasp, especially coming off of this high of McCutcheon, who's out of the Austin area, throwing the horns down after being the first commit in the boat for Alabama in the 2021 class before reopening his recruitment after a visit to Oklahoma in March. Off this high of Kayla Williams, saying when you're talking about quarterbacks, you're talking about Oklahoma, you're talking about QBU, you're talking about Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Jaylen Hertz, Spencer Rattler, and there are folks in the comments of this channel that just aren't being smart about their commentary. What you need to understand about Caleb Williams committing to Oklahoma is that it's already factored in for him to redshirt his first year, which would be Rattler's 3rd year in the program and in the system after probably 2 years as a starter. The only way that there's a hiccup there is if Rattler isn't as good as we all think he is. But just basing it on Lincoln Riley's track record of picking quarterbacks and basing it on his criteria of what it takes to be quarterback at Oklahoma and the number of players around, you can really see how this is just going to work like clockwork until it doesn't, right? And that would be the argument. The argument would be Austin Kendall if you're going to make one. If you're going to make one in the comments about Caleb Williams and his commitment and signing and how that's going to look in 3 years, Austin Kendall would be where you start, and then you could go to Chris Robinson, but then you'd have to know something about Oklahoma to be able to make those connections, and many folks in the comments just don't. Austin Kendall was recruited over. They brought in Jaylen Hertz. He finished the Heisman runner-up, won a Big 12 championship, took him from 25 down to beat Baylor on the road, and was pretty great in his 1 year. Wasn't as good as I'd like him to be, but you would take a 3,000 or 3,800 plus yard and 1,298 yard rushing year in any year. You take a 50 touchdown year from a guy like Jaylen Hertz. I just didn't appreciate him putting the ball on the ground. Another aspect of this that I really need to do a segment on is how Caleb Williams' commitment it makes him the third highest ranked player in the history of Oklahoma's recruiting in the rankings era. It goes Adrian Peterson, right? It goes Rhett Bomar. Yeah, I said it. It goes Kayla Williams, and then it goes, yes, of course, Jaden Hazelwood. So you're talking about two of the top 4 recruited players all time, Kayla Williams signs, being on the same team once again. And it could be just that up in the air, right? Because if Kayla Williams turned out to be a Rhett Bomar, that would be a problem. If Jaden Hazelwood doesn't pan out to be one of the better wide receivers to ever come through here, you could also see that as well. But looking at the overall rankings history, there are guys that are still ranked super high that you wouldn't feel that way about now, right? Guys like Noah Brown or Noah Spence. I'm at Ohio State, and there's a few other highly ranked players that we just never heard a peep from that it just didn't work out for. So it's on the table, but these are all things to keep in mind as we continue to go forward with recruiting. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.